One of the great wisdoms of poets, philosophers, the emperors who might have come up with a philosophy like Stoicism is that they can serve as safeguards against distractions. After 2 decades of overseeing the Roman Empire, Marcus Aurelius has important advice on what making the most of the first half of your day has to do with living life to the fullest. Marcus Aurelius had a very specific way of engaging with the world. In fact, some lectures that I've listened to about him, the professors had said that Marcus Aurelius would not be a fun friend to have. He was so obsessed with perfection of his character that he really took no breaks. He never gave himself any time off from being the best he could be. Very often, in fact, we feel a lack of judiciousness with our actions, we let our attention become diverted, or we wonder why Sally hasn't texted us back yet again. I don't know why she's not texting me back, because are we talking about this again? Not only did we go on that mini golfing date, but then I did this whole Bollywood song that she really liked. I just think I've already told you, man, it's because you're ugly. Don't say it, come on. You're disgusting. I'm not. Well, at the very least, you need a haircut. There's nothing I can do about that. I think it looks kind of good, actually. I think I look like an Indian Ashton Kutcher. You look like the villain in a disco movie. Nonetheless, the ideas of Marcus Aurelius are so inspiring, and above all, they help you stay calm in the midst of all sorts of changes. With that being said, here are 5 things that you can implement into your daily life that will make your morning and your day as a whole more stoic. First of which is this: immediate awareness of the fact that you have been given another day. Perhaps it seems a little trite to think about the fact that you woke up today and you were given this day, but for a man who spent much of his life on the campgrounds of a battlefield, even as the philosopher king of Rome, this was a big deal, that you have been given another day. Make this a very conscious realization first thing in the morning. That's it. That's the principle in action. There's no direct action needed, but simply acknowledging that, hey, I woke up today. I've been given this day. That's actually a pretty big deal. We are a very special concoction of atoms, given a sharp intellect, a body that we can work with, and the playground of the 21st century. Certainly, there are obligations, stresses, and fears, perhaps now more than ever, but nonetheless, this is a very special time to be alive, and at the very least, the fact that we do have existence at our disposal is pretty remarkable. Marcus Aurelius would have us remember what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. The second habit you can implement, perhaps the single most stoic thing that you could be doing, is journaling. Now, to be fair, this is something that I haven't done a lot of. I often find myself very overwhelmed by the blank page, and I tend to feel as if I have a general knowledge of what I should do next, but I often find myself sort of blurring the days together and not keeping that sense of clarity of what I'm about and how things are progressing, big picture. Perhaps this is a good time to sit with a page for just a few minutes and respond to some journal prompts. Here are some favorite stoic prompts that I've come across. Think of someone you admire. Write yourself advice you think they would give you from their point of view. I've really enjoyed doing this exercise in recent times. It's actually very similar to something that Napoleon Hill had said in his book Think and Grow Rich about the Sixth Sense. He would say things like, Thomas Edison, can you give me some advice about persistence? He would say, Ralph Waldo Emerson, can you teach me how to be more self-reliant in this moment? And this is actually a very stoic exercise. I've been doing a lot of running recently, and I gotta be honest, I have been enjoying thinking that Goggins is yelling in my ear, telling me to keep going, push onwards, and I have been using this technique to great success. Other journaling prompts from Stoicism that I've liked. Think of 12-year-old you. What secrets of life have you acquired that you would want to share with yourself? Think of a philosophical or ethical tenet that you struggle to live by. Write down that tenet and again in your own words. In the words of Ryan Holiday, journaling is Stoicism. The daily practice, more than any other, is the philosophy in action. Reminding oneself of the wisdom that we have learned from our teachers, from our reading, from our own experiences. It's not enough to simply hear these lessons once. Instead, one practices them over and over again, turns them over in their mind, and most importantly, writes them down and feels these ideas flowing through their fingers in doing so. In hearing these words from Ryan Holiday, I'm actually reminded of an interview between the film director Guy Ritchie and Joe Rogan. In that interview, Guy Ritchie said something to the effect of, you've got to remind yourself of what you believe in, what you're about, before you head out into the world, because the world will make you forget.
There needs to be some period in your day where you remember that there's a world out there trying to tell you who you are, and there's a world in here that's trying to tell you who you are. Now, where do you want to put your eggs?
The third morning routine practice is to prepare for the day ahead. A few considerations that you could think about to plan for each day ahead could go something like this. The first thing would be to capture everything that you need to do at all in any capacity. Write down everything you can think to do to get done. David Allen, the author of the book Getting Things Done, would argue this is the most important step in structuring time. Make sure that as few action items slip through the cracks. The process of simply writing down everything you need to do in any capacity really frees up a lot of brain space. It's something I call my RAM clearing session, or a brain dump. After this, you consider your outcome. Ask yourself, what are the 1, 2, or 3 overarching results that would actually mean something to you? You might have 1,000 errands that you need to accomplish, or just a whole series of things that you need to do, but it's probably only 1 or 2 of those things that serve some sort of fulfilling towards an overarching principle or goal that you're working towards. What are those 1 or 2 things? When I'm planning out my day or my week on my calendar, I actually have a different color for every type of action I need to do. Blue is for any maintenance activity, which is related to my health or to just cleaning. Yellow for any obligation, such as doing things related to my actual job, my day job. I use gray as a color that represents just entropy in general, chaos, which just goes to show, like, anytime I have to do something, it's probably going to take longer, or there's going to be some commute time or some inefficiency, and I sort of budget that in with a gray entropy time block. Green is for something related to deep work, but it's more personal, so anytime I'm studying. And then usually there's only 1 or 2 items that I label purple, which is my inspired action. It's the thing that if I did in that day, it would move the needle the most. Once you've captured everything you need to do and considered the outcomes you want to achieve, you can then just create a general flow for the day. Create a list of things that you would want to accomplish. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it is very useful to think about the broad strokes of what your day would look like. The 4th thing to implement would be some kind of voluntary discomfort. I think we find in life that anytime we engage in any sort of voluntary discomfort, our brain immediately rationalizes it as not useful, even for things that we know are genuinely productive. For instance, oftentimes I have to convince myself or just force myself to go for a run first thing in the morning. My brain will immediately tell me, hey, you don't really need to run right now because your energy is really good, so why not just do your work? Let's just get straight to work, we don't need to do the run. Or, you know what, today I don't need to take the cold shower, what's the point? This type of rationale for voluntary discomfort is captured very well by the phrase, in times of peace, prepare for war. Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, is this the condition that I feared? It is precisely in this time of immunity from care that the soul should toughen itself beforehand for occasions of greater stress, and it is while fortune is kind that it should fortify itself against her violence. And with this in mind, the last thing to do as part of your stoic morning routine is negative visualization. Now, I have struggled to implement this habit many times. It sort of goes against my inherent desire to only visualize good things and sort of use that law of attraction to attract only positive things in my life. And yet I also have always found that anytime I've tried to do anything, even if I have only been using positive visualization, invariably something always comes up. There's always an obstacle, there's always a challenge. And so why not prepare for that challenge by visualizing it? Instead of becoming frustrated and annoyed when challenges do come up, visualize them in advance. Visualize negative things happening. But visualize these things very, very gently. And then also importantly, imagine yourself overcoming those challenges. Imagine yourself working through those obstacles. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood and birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are unnatural. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel features approximately 2 videos a week, 1 genuine video and 1 comedy sketch. If that appeals to you, consider subscribing. And for those of us who are willing to wrestle with the ugliness of the world, those great inefficiencies, perhaps by feeling gratitude for being given that next day, by journaling, by planning for the day ahead, by engaging in acts of voluntary discomfort so that we can be toughened up to our stresses, and lastly, to practice some form of gentle negative visualization, to us I say, greatness is coming. There's a new sketch coming on Wednesday. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys very shortly. Cheers.